watching the award-winning GHS TV, Germantown Community Television, your hometown news and information station.
Welcome back. With us now is Neal Hanna. We're talking about real estate law. Before the break, we were talking about property management and everything. If I have just one property and, I was going to rent it, try and make some money before I had the money to pay a property manager. When I'm looking at tenants, how should I do the application process? What are some things I need to look at? Because I know on any given day in General Sessions Court downtown, you've just got a ton of evictions. And
Right.
so that way, to make sure that you're going to get a good tenant,
Right.
what would you do?
Well, a couple of things, and you're right. You want to make sure you get a good tenant on the front end, but you also want to take some steps so that just in case your investigation of that tenant proves to not be correct, you know how to track that person down in order to get paid for the rent that they left you with. To begin with, you want to make sure that you get their Social Security number and do a credit check on them. I would highly recommend that. Any application also, I would get 2 to 3 references, if not more, of folks that you can contact to try to locate this individual. And that just helps you be able to find this person in the event that you do have to do an eviction and pursue a judgment for rent or fees that are owed. You can call these folks and find out where they're working so you can get your process server down there to serve them.
Well, and then I know one thing that a lot of people don't think about is to actually check the General Sessions website and do a search under the judgments to see if anybody's actually been evicted in the past.
Right. And that's true. That's not often going to show up on a credit report. Now, a judgment may show up, but it may not show up that they actually got evicted. A lot of landlords will just, if there's not a lot of money owed, they'll just go ahead and evict them without pursuing a judgment for the money that's owed. They just sort of say, I'm glad to have this guy out. I'm going to just put another tenant in here and not waste my time and money trying to track this guy down and get him to pay. So yeah, you're exactly right.
So as far as in the other areas where you're drafting contracts and things like that, I guess a little focus on commercial. If you've got a startup business and you're negotiating your commercial lease for your office space, any suggestions in regards to that?
Well, any commercial lease that you're going to try to put in your business name is probably going to involve some sort of a personal guarantee. Again, it goes back to insulating your individual assets. When you come in as a tenant, as a business owner, to get commercial space, you're going to put the lease in that business name, but the landlord knows or ought to know that they'd be smart to make the individual that owns the business back up the business, the business's obligation to pay rent. And so basically what that means is if you go in and sign a lease under your business name and you don't pay, then the landlord can look to the person and say, hey, you're going to have to pay this money yourself because your business either folded or doesn't have any income, and so from the landlord's perspective, you definitely want to include that. From the business owner's perspective, the tenant, the goal would be to try to limit that as much as you can. A lot of times you can, if you've got several owners of the business, they can each guarantee a portion of the rent. And so if there's 3 guys, they would each guarantee a third. It's also not uncommon to in a long-term lease to guarantee the first 2 years, but after the first 2 years of the lease, then the guarantee will go away. That's usually the biggest issue. The other issue that I've seen come up in these commercial leases is just oftentimes the landlord will put in a right to move the tenant. So if you're on a floor, you have a small part of one floor on a big commercial building, and for example, the landlord has a tenant that comes in and says, well, I need some space, but I want everything on this entire floor. Then the landlord leaves them room to move you somewhere else. And those clauses can vary. I think it's reasonable to leave that in there for them to move you once, but as a tenant, you retain a little bit of a bargaining power if they only have one shot at the apple or one bite at the apple. In other words, landlords can threaten a tenant and say, well, you're going to move and we're not going to pay for your moving, and if you put up a fight about it, we're going to move you again next month, and we're going to move you again a month after that. And if they've got an unlimited power to do that, then it sort of exposes you a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that wouldn't be a very good landlord there. But I know with commercial leases, a lot of times there's provisions in there about the build-out. Is there anything that someone should watch out for that?
Well, I mean, the build-out is it's more of a business term, and if you're a tenant that's got some special needs and it's going to be a high-dollar build-out, the landlord is going to want you to have a long-term lease. They may try to get you to pay that stuff out over your lease. If you're going to pay for it either up front or pay it out over the term of the lease, you want to make sure that you've got the right to take that stuff out when you move and take it with you.
Well, and just to clarify on the build-out, because we may have some people out there that don't have the knowledge you and I do as to what build-out means. Just if you can briefly describe what that is.
Yeah, and it can be you moving into a completely unfinished space, and the landlord is going to build it out to your exact specifications, or it could mean that you've got a space that's already finished and it was being used for one purpose, but you want to use it for something else, and so you want the landlord to change that up. I see it a lot in doctors and dentists' offices that have very specific things that those folks need, and if you're going to convert that to just regular office use, you want the sinks and the dental chairs and all that and the plumbing lines moved out, and so that's definitely a build out that you'd have to consider somehow.
All right. Our time is up for this edition of Legalese. I'd like to thank our guest for taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us and sharing his thoughts and insight. If you would like more information about Legalese or any other program on GHS TV, please refer to our website at www.ghstv.org. Thank you for joining us today, and be sure to join us next month for more discussion on legal topics. Until then, I am Vince Perryman. Thank you for watching.